Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the top-tier brewing stand. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
Brewers, it's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think, Jamil Zainasheff and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters. Back for
greetings.
Back for episode 3 of the Package-gasm.
Packaging.
We're talking about our packages. No. You know, I came across this thing on Flipkart.com. So it's brewing classic styles, 80 winning recipes anyone can brew. Book by Jamil Zainasheff and John Palmer. And it's on it's the Indian version of the site, I guess, and it's selling for 781 rupees. The list price is 964 rupees, so that's a 183 rupee discount. So I'm thinking, well, that's pretty cool. You know, I wonder how much rupee to U.S. dollar, and that's like 17 something for the book, and that includes free shipping within India, I think. So nice. I thought that was a pretty good deal. That's a pretty good price with shipping. And
I'm just kind of pleased we're for sale in India.
Oh yeah, we got. There's at least one guy in India that I exchange email with. He listens to the shows, and he's doing his best to brew great beer there because he's got limited access to certain yeasts and things like that. But he seems real passionate about it. Decent dude. I forget his name. But nice guy. I've exchanged some email with him. And as always, you look down at the bottom there, purchase similar books. How to Brew by John J. Palmer. That's also 781 rupees. That's a deal. That's a deal right there, huh? How to Brew. And then there's Sexual Styles by John Michael something or other. Now that one, that's 1,832 rupees.
Oh.
Sexual Styles. Similar books. Yes, brewing classic styles and sexual styles.
What does that say about the relative demand of the topics in India?
I think it says more about our book than it does about the demand in India.
Yeah.
Self-sufficiency homebrewing, classical electrodynamics, and sexual styles. And of course, I had to click on that and see what it was all about, but then, it started getting a little weird. I'm like, okay, I really shouldn't be looking at this. But I thought that was great. Flipkart.com. Flipkart. Another great website you should check out is blickmanengineering.com. BLICHMANN engineering.com. And that's the website of our fine sponsor, Blickman Engineering. They make really great equipment that they're always looking for new ways to solve problems for brewers, and they solve problems for this brewer here. They sent me a top-tier system. I haven't had a chance to break it out and play with it yet, but he also sent me one of those new hop screens that goes in there, and
a hop rocket.
And he's got some alt. He's ever since he became a sponsor, he's been letting me in on some of their exchange, their new developments going on. So, some of their top secret stuff. So it's been really exciting. I really appreciate it. This show finally starting to pay off for me. Making some headway there. So I'm excited. I want to try that stuff out. It's not a bribe or anything. I'm sure people will look at it that way, but what it is a chance for me to try out the equipment that so I can talk about it. Otherwise, it's like with the better bottles. They sent me some better bottles. I tried them. I told you things I didn't like about them. I told you things I did like about them, but I ended up switching to them just because.
Some good points.
It's a good product. and I'm figuring I'll have the same thing with the Blickman gear. There's things I probably won't like, things I will like or love, and I'll tell you all about it. That's the whole plan, anyways.
I spent a lot of time over the last couple of years building my dream system.
And you threw it away and got a Blickman?
Well, then I got the top tier, and it's darn handy compared to going through all the prep for my dream system.
Yeah. You've been brewing on it a while now.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
I just wish my driveway was a little bit more level, but nothing a 2x4 and a brick won't rectify.
You should let Blickman know so he can innovate some more and send some other features your way as far as figuring out how to solve that problem for you.
Well, here, testimonial. 2 weeks ago, I was brewing in the driveway, and I was dumping some water out on the side yard, and tripped over a sprinkler fitting. And when you get to be our age, you don't fall as gracefully as you did when you were younger. But I picked myself up and got back to brewing, and my wife texted me and said, "Where was that earthquake?" And I said, "What do you mean? I did not amount to seismic activity here. Are you watching me out the window or what?" But she was they were out the mall actually at a movie, and that was when the Baja California quake hit. What is it, 7.2 down there?
Yeah.
I didn't feel it. I did not notice the brew stands swaying at all. I mean,
solid as a rock, eh?
Yeah, it really was. I mean, when the earthquake actually occurred, I mean, I was standing there stirring the mash, and nothing. Didn't notice a thing.
Do you drink when you brew?
Not usually. I mean, I'll have like one, but usually I'm just glued to the process.
Just checking. Yeah. All right. Okay.
I've never been one of those guys that has 10 while they're brewing. It's usually just one.
Yeah, it messes me up. I can't drink and brew. It's just but I saw the top tier system for the first time in at the Northern Brewer store in Milwaukee. It was very cool. That's what got me kind of excited about it, was seeing that, and so now I'll be brewing on one. So I'm pretty excited. Also excited, about we got a lot of stuff coming up. We got the NHC coming up. We got Peter and mine road trip out to the NHC. You can come out and join us on that, and you'll be there too, John. We're going to do a live show from the conference at the NHC. You can come out and stand around. We'll do a Q&A show, and people can ask questions, and we'll just answer them.
Yeah, maybe I got to look at the speaker lineup at NHC, but we should grab one of the experts and kind of expand on one of their topics too. Get them on the air. Okay,
well, that could work. We'll see what we see there. I'm sure we'll find somebody good. Yeah. Anyways, this is the third episode in our Package-gasm, where I think this is the show we're going to wrap it up with. We're going to talk the whole show about counter-pressure filling, which is a big, confusing subject for a lot of people. We're going to go from how you get that beer that's carbonated out of the keg into some bottles of different sizes, different techniques, everything from Tasty's dirt cheap, just jam it in the bottle method, to counter pressure filling, to the Blickman beer gun. And actually, we're going to have a good guest joining us to talk about this stuff. So let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll get right into GASM 3. Back after this.
Right. Brew smart.
Brew strong. This is Brew Strong.
From the stovetop to a camp burner to some kind of brew stand. Most homebrewers follow some version of this progression. With each move, a homebrewer will often have to change a lot, if not all, of their equipment. Until now, Blickman Engineering brings you the top-tier brewing stand. The only brewing stand that grows with you. For example, buy a top-tier floor-standing burner now, and it'll bolt right to your top-tier brewing stand when you're ready for all-grain brewing. The top-tier brewing stand is perfect for 5-gallon to 20-gallon batch sizes. Its modular design is adjustable and accommodates everything from small footprint coolers up to 30-gallon pots. How does the top-tier brewing stand do it? At its core is a strong, heat-treated, and anodized aluminum main post. On all 4 sides are built-in T-slots for the adjustable heavy-gauge stainless steel shelves and beefy burner tiers. The tiers accommodate any manufacturer's pots or coolers up to 21 inches in diameter. Best of all, not only does the top-tier brewing stand grow with your skills and equipment, but it easily knocks down for long-term storage or transport, too. The top-tier brewing stand from Blickman Engineering. Learn more at blickmanengineering.com and to find a local Blickman retailer. And start brewing from the top tier.
Downtown Joe's, located in the historic Oberon building in beautiful downtown Napa, California, offers an award-winning brew pub experience from 8:30 a.m. to 1 a.m. every day. For 15 years at the corner of 2nd and Main, Downtown Joe's has been voted Best Night Spot 7 times and Best Brew Pub for the last 4 years in a row. Brewmaster Colin Kaminsky's handcrafted ales, like his Tail Wagon Amber Ale and Catherine the Great Imperial Stout, are the perfect accent to riverside dining, live music, and a relaxing outdoor patio. Don't miss the Beer of the Month, special rotating taps, and happy hour all day Mondays. Visit downtownjoes.com to make reservations, peruse their extensive calendar of events, or just read more about their fantastic beers. Come enjoy the fine beer, food, and music. Downtown Joe's, the award-winning brew pub where you'll feel at home.
And now, Northern Brewer brings you another installment of The Time Brewers. 3 brewers, 3 different eras, all caught in the same fermento-chronological vortex, traveling through time, righting brewing wrongs, and bringing beery wisdom to where and whenever it may be needed. Journey now with Dr. Jean de Klerk.
Greetings, listeners.
20th century Belgian super brewing scientist.
Please, the yeast and the enzymes do the hard work. I am merely a facilitator.
Icebach.
What?
21st century Norwegian American homebrewer rapper from St. Paul.
Listen, I bust attenuation maximums and my Yakima magnums make my lager so smooth it's like a laxative. My spit got that static power after I mash for an hour. I got naked ladies in my brew room all covered in hot flowers. I swing a propagation flask like a 5-liter dick. Get your nasty mid-drinking group on ass back to 1026, boo!
And Brother Abelard.
Art thou a witch? Begone!
12th century English monk and perpetuator of brewing superstition.
My holy rod of divine babbling shall maketh any ale to froth by the grace of heaven, and a modicum of bog myrtle hurts not either.
Brought to you by Northern Brewer, your one-stop homebrew supplier throughout the entire fermento chronosphere. The widest selection of quality malt, hops, yeast, and equipment with $7.99 flat rate shipping. Tune in next time for more Time Brewers!
Hilo, what's it feel like?
Take awesome and multiply it by 2.
Yeah! Spraying live beer radio all over your face.
Can't get any better than this, baby.
It's the Brewing Network.
Back to the 2 guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
Yes, you're listening to the authors of Classic Sexual Styles. 80 winning positions you can use. And we're joined by our fine sponsor. And aren't you glad that you're sponsoring this program, Mr. John Blickman? How you doing, John?
Good. How you guys doing?
All right.
We're doing great.
Yeah, this is the kind of standard programming you hear in the Midwest back east.
Oh, yeah. This is great stuff.
Yeah, we try not to get a little too disgusting here on this program. We're actually a little more serious.
About the beer, really.
Yeah, we're about the beer. A little more serious and concentrate about the beer, like your company. You're real passionate about the beer, and that's one of the things that amazed me was things you've done, like the beer gun. I thought that was just like a radical change to how people thought about bottling beer and the counter pressure filling and all that, and that was just amazing to me. I was like, wow, I think that was what made me first take notice of Blickman Engineering, was like, that is something new and unusual and innovative, that you were changing how people did things.
Yeah, that was a long in the works product. I started like everybody else using the counter pressure fillers, and after cleaning beer off our kitchen ceiling and all those other things, and having to cover the kids' ears up when I was cussing because foam was spraying out of my bottles, I just thought, hey, this is not a complicated thing. Why is it? Why do we have to deal with this irritation? Mm-hmm. And I just, really, it's just like when I was an engineer at CAT, I did a lot of field service type work, and it always boils down to, once you find the root cause, the fix is easy. Mm-hmm. And so I really just boiled the beer gun down to, or to filling a bottle down to, what's the whole point of it? Mm-hmm. And it's as simple as, you want the beer to go into the bottle without adding oxygen and with a very minimal amount of foam. It's actually nice to have just a little bit so you can cap on foam. Mm-hmm. And, really the crux of all the foaming, and you touched on this quite a bit on the previous show, is the beer's in a happy equilibrium when it's in a keg, and when you go to transfer it into a bottle, it's no longer in that equilibrium state. So the gas wants to come out. You've got to take it through a turmoil of changes in pressure and directions, and that CO2 does not want to stay in solution. Mm-hmm. So what we really did with the beer gun is, how do we minimize all that stuff so that the beer really doesn't get too upset as it goes through all these tubes and everything else, so it gets into your beer bottle without foaming. Mm-hmm. And, it really boiled down to several things. One was dropping that pressure slowly. You don't want a throttling valve or sharp 90 degrees that, accelerate the beer as it goes around that corner, and then just creates nucleation sites for that CO2 to come out of solution. So we, with the beer gun, we use a 10-foot length of hose that slowly drops that pressure down. And we actually have absolutely no 90-degree elbows or anything in the beer path. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing was really just kind of, it always seemed like you needed three hands to operate a lot of these fillers. And, to me that was always a pain. So it was, okay, how do I make this a one-handed operation? And that's how we came up with the little simple mechanism that we came up with. Mm-hmm. And it's been a great seller. It's probably the product I get the most compliments on, and it's great, and it's humbling as an engineer to really get those compliments and know that you've made somebody else's bottling day a lot more pleasant instead of frustrating like it always was for me.
Mm-hmm. Now, Palmer, there's many ways to get carbonated beer out of the keg into the bottle. What are those methods that exist?
Well, John touched on one key aspect of getting beer in the bottle, and that is to maintain some equilibrium of pressure so that you don't end up with just lots of foam in the bottle. Uh-huh. You want to get more beer than foam in the bottle, and you want a little bit on top so you can cap on foam. In other words, purging the headspace as you fill. But our good friend Taysom McDowell does a very simple pour right from his draft system. He's got a kegerator, and he chills the kegs down, gets them quite cold, near 30, and then backs off the pressure a little bit and slowly pours into his bottles right from the tap and caps it that way.
Doesn't he stick a piece of like stiff tubing up in the faucet and try and fill from the bottom or anything like that?
Yeah, I believe he does, and there are other people that don't. They just fill right from the faucet itself. But using a piece of tube to get down to the bottom of the bottle is a help. Reduces the amount of air exposure that you're going to get. If you're doing a short term package, just to get it to competition that weekend or something, then it may not be as critical. But
yeah, I know Mike will fill his bottles at the last minute to turn in for a competition, and then. And part of it, I guess, is you're going to pick up some more oxygen that way. I think, and one of the things that bothers me is as anal as I am about making sure everything's clean, my draft system, unless you're taking that thing apart, daily and cleaning it out and putting it all back together and sanitizing it, before everything, it builds up crud so fast because you get that exposed end and. I don't even like leaving it hooked up to my kegs for a long period of time because the bacteria is going to grow into the keg. So you're picking up stuff. And actually, I did a experiment where I had 2 beers I sent to White Labs for their testing, their quality control, and like one sample from the beer from a sanitized short piece of filler tubing, and then the other one through the draft system that I had recently cleaned, and that one was just rife with bacteria. It was not a good thing. So if you have a real short window, you're going to fill it, you're going to give it to somebody that evening, you're going to take it to a party and provide it to somebody, then and they're going to drink it that night, then great. I think that works, and it's cheap. If you've already got the kegging set up and all that, a piece of stiff plastic tubing, that's all it takes. One thing I do for the Can You Brew It shows is I'll pour beer that morning into a 2-liter soda bottle, and I'll put one of those blue plastic. What do they call them?
Carbonator caps?
Yeah, carbonator caps. And you can make your own. Somebody did it with tire valves and stuff like that. People make their own carbonator cap. And then, although it's just easier just to buy a carbonator cap. And I'll jack it up with some pressure, and that's good for the shows. So that's a quick and simple and easy way to do it, and cheap. So what would be the next step from there, John?
Well, one way I used to do it is I made my own little counter pressure filler from a single piece of hard plastic tubing. Or it was actually a racking cane that I'd cut off at appropriate length, and a rubber stopper slipped up at the side of that racking cane, and then had a valve. It was simply hooked up to my keg. So from the liquid outside of the keg, into this cane with the stopper on it and a valve, I would stick the stopper in the bottle and turn on the beer. And as the pressure, with the pressure would build up inside the bottle, it would reduce the foam, and I would just gradually, kind of bleed pressure out of the bottle with the stopper as it filled. But not ideal. I ended up with a fair amount of foam in the bottle, but it worked. It was cheap. Other counter pressure fillers and the kind you see, you can see them buy them at the homebrew shops and various places. There's a liquid in, there's a gas in, separate valves to open and close, so that you are pressurizing the bottle with CO2 as you're filling it with beer, and then gradually bleeding that pressure off as the beer fills.
Well, there's some where you bleed it off by kind of tilting the filler and it leaks out past the stopper. And there's some with a little bleed-off screw that you can adjust for pressure. And then there are some where instead of... The one that I've used a bunch was had 2 valves, each operated independently. And then they have some where it's like a 3-way valve where you go... gas, and then it goes off, and then it goes beer. I actually don't care for those because it's just, too much chance for messing up. I have literally counter pressure filled, over 8,000 bottles of beer. And so I got really good at using multiple hands, actually, forearm and, elbows and noses and, to operate all the little pieces and parts. And John Blickman, if you got any tips on using any of these methods, jump right in. I'm sure you got experience with all these too.
Oh yeah, I've used the growler filling with. In fact, I think the Perlick faucets. I think they're actually sized so you can stick a 3/8-inch tube up inside of them, and it fits real snugly.
Right.
And that's what I do for filling growlers, just because I know I'm just going to serve it that evening, and I don't even bother CO2 purging the bottle.
Well, and you'll see a lot of brew pubs will do that too. When you go in to get a growler fill, they have a piece of tube and they just stick up in the faucet and go ahead and fill it up, and then they cap on foam, and that seems to work fairly well. Again, if you're going to drink it right away, that's fine. On the counter pressure fillers, that's all that existed back then. I tried several models over time, and they all worked just about equally well for me. Like I said, I've got a lot of experience with those, so I figured out a lot of the little magic tricks to use them without excessive problems. So one that I figured out was put the keg up high and the beer bottle down low. And what you want to do is jack up your pressure in the so you're using an overpressure of like 10 to 20 psi to hold down foaming in the bottle. You pressurize the bottle with the filler, and then you start the beer flow. And the beer flow is, if you've got it sealed off completely, so no gas is leaking out of that bottle, you open the beer valve and no beer comes out. Now you bleed off just a tiny bit of pressure, and the beer starts flowing. And you're essentially siphoning the beer out of the keg into the bottle, and you can just slowly bleed off the gas. If you do it slowly and carefully enough, you can fill that with nary a bubble to the surface. The difficulty comes in just holding that pressure and keeping it steady. And if you wiggle at all, if you slip, if you don't, that's when you get the beer shower. And I've probably had a dozen beer showers out of that time. So, it goes all over the ceiling. It goes all over the place. So once you've run the beer to the level that you want, you stop the beer flow. You slowly bleed off the rest of the gas as slowly as you can, and then quietly remove the filler, and you shouldn't get foaming. If you yank the filler off before the pressure has been reduced down to atmospheric pressure, that's when you get the beer shower. That's when you get a lot of foaming. And
that is going to make it rain.
Yeah, if your bottles aren't clean, if your beer tends to foam a lot with big bubbles, if you got a lot of particulate matter in the beer, that's when you're just going to get a lot of foaming out the bottles. And if you have a really highly carbonated beer, it becomes even more problematic because, again, you got to keep that a minimum of 10 psi over whatever your beer pressure is, and generally 15 to 20 works better. But holding down on 30 psi with the counter pressure filler, working the valves and the bleed screw and doing all this stuff, it can get a little tricky. Again, I've done it with thousands of bottles, and it worked fine. It's just not the easiest thing in the world. You guys got any other tips for counter pressure filling?
I found real proteinous beers, mostly like wheats and oatmeals beers they can be challenging too. They're all those proteins, support such a nice frothy head. Mm-hmm. They can be challenging too. And then obviously the highly carbonated beers. I kind of always recommend with the beer gun is just to drop it to about half your normal dispensing pressure. So, anywhere between 5 to 7 psi, start there. And I don't recommend chilling the kegs until you just try it and just see how it works for you. And then if you're not happy with the foam level that you're getting, then you can start reducing the temperature of the keg. But you want to drop the CO2 pressure down because if you're going to chill that over a long period of time, because you don't want to overcarbonate the beer either. That's another question I get fairly often is. I'll get people that on occasion that have trouble filling a bottle, and I always quiz them about their procedure for carbonating the beer. And probably the number one reason is speed gassing, is what I call it, where you jack the CO2 pressure up, to 20, 30 psi, and either let it sit or shake the daylights out of it to get the CO2 to dissolve, so you can get it carbonated faster and drink it sooner. The problem there is it's nearly impossible to control the actual amount of carbonation in there. And once you get your beer overcarbonated, it's awful darn difficult to bottle with about anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's one of the fundamental differences between how the beer gun works and how a regular counter-pressure filler works. The counter-pressure filler requires you to have that keep that pressure on the beer in order to keep it from foaming. So you've got to increase the pressure and hold down the foaming. Otherwise, it's just going to bubble all over the place, and you're just going to end up with a mess. And
right, and the beer gun doesn't pressurize the bottle, so you don't have the issues with the beer spraying. But it's a little. You may need to do just a few little extra things if you're going to do a highly carbonated beer or a wheat beer, like chilling the keg, and sometimes the bottles too. The whole thing there is, CO2 is soluble based on temperature and pressure, and you want to have that stay pretty close to the same, so you're not increasing the temperature of it suddenly, and you're not changing the pressure suddenly.
Well, let's do this. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, you can fill us in on the beer gun, the quiescent fill, and all that stuff, and how it differs from counter-pressure filling. Give us some tips, things like that.
Sure.
We'll be back after this.
Keep your carboy cap on.
This is Brew Strong.
We'll be right back.
Do you support the Brewing Network? Do you brew your own? Are you looking for an economical, fun, and legal way to do both? Subscribe to Brew Your Own magazine and do just that. All year long, Brew Your Own will surprise you, entertain you, and educate you with articles on beer and brewing from authors like the Brewing Network's very own Jamel Zadashev and John Palmer. Each issue is a full pint of brewing techniques, homebrew stories, tips and photos, projects to make yourself, and recipes for the avid home brewer. Get your tough questions answered by Mr. Wizard, and polish your style accuracy with Jamel. A portion of every subscription goes to the Brewing Network, so subscribe today at byo.com/Brewing Network, or just click the BYO logo on the Brewing Network homepage and support a fantastic hobby and your favorite broadcaster. Brew Your Own, the how-to homebrew beer magazine.
Hi, this is Push from the Brewing Network, and I want to tell you about the Brewmaster's Warehouse and how you can get 10% off your next order. I'm a pretty techie guy, but I've never seen an online store like this. It's awesome. Go to brewmasterswarehouse.com and click on Brew Builder. You can whip up a custom recipe so easily even Sven could do it. Seriously, it's slick. You can share your recipe with your own logo and notes to the Brewmaster's database if you want, and the best part, it keeps a running tally of the beer you're building while you're doing it. Then, bam, click Buy Recipe, and your cart is filled and ready to go with helpful suggestions in case you forgot something. This thing is amazing. Brewmaster's Warehouse is run the way a home brewer would do it, with great service, fast turnaround, and $6.99 flat rate shipping. Brewmaster's Warehouse and the Brew Builder blew me away. Check it out today at brewmasterswarehouse.com. I'm serious. And don't forget to put BNARMY in the discount code box for 10% off your order. Check out brewmasterswarehouse.com. Cheers. Hey, Push, the new brewery's looking good.
Thanks, Finn. Piece by piece.
Well, let's fire her up. Whoa! Is that a new kettle?
Yeah, just got it brand new, but paid half price.
What? And that blade scale?
40% off.
The new tap handle?
$5 instead of $13. Got a new regulator for the brew stand, too, but $5 instead of $25.
Dude, where are you stealing all this stuff from?
Where else? The More Beer deal of the day.
Announcing the Beer, and More Beer deal of the day. Every day, a new fantastic deal from big items to small that will blow you away. Boil kettles, carboy carriers, sterile siphon starters, digital timers. Watch morebeer.com every day for a new deal, and you just might find the item you've been waiting for at a price you cannot believe. Hurry, because stock is limited on most items.
And that sweet Guinness cap, let me guess.
The More Beer deal of the day.
Yeah, I knew it. Come on, let's brew something. Find the More Beer deal of the day at morebeer.com. Celebrity voices impersonated.
You're listening to the Brewing Network.
Back to the beer guys that make other beer guys look like wine guys. Brew strong.
All right, we're back. We're talking counter pressure filling in part 3 of our package gasm. And all right, so just before the break, we were talking about the Blickman beer gun and how it's different than counter pressure filling, which is requires you to have an overpressure to hold down, so the CO2 cannot come out of the beer, and that requires you to keep the bottle sealed. And otherwise you have foaming as it travels through the lines, and it causes all this foaming. If you keep enough pressure on it, that holds it down. Now, explain to me how the beer gun works and how you don't need to pressurize the bottle with the beer gun.
Well, getting back to what I was talking about earlier, the root cause of, or the whole idea behind filling the bottle so that it'll last long in the package is getting it in there with out oxidation, and to get it in there with very minimal foaming, so you don't lose the carbonation level. And instead of just trying to improve upon what was there, having used virtually all the different counter pressure fillers myself, just bottling beers for competitions and the like. I just saw one of the limits is pressurizing that. That's where you required multiple hands to use it. They were fairly, you had multiple valves that you were turning. If you slip a little bit with the stopper, the beer will just spray right out of it, or you can tip the bottle accidentally because you got to hold it down. And having doused my kitchen multiple times with beer, and the wife not particularly appreciating that, I thought, there's got to be a different way. And so I just got down to the root of what causes CO2 to come out of solution. And it quite simply is what changes that equilibrium point? It's pressure and temperature and nucleation sites. So the temperature was a pretty simple one, and that works great for counter pressure as well. And that just make sure your bottles are the same temperature as your beer, and that helps. And as far as pressure, what the approach I really took for pressure was, the beer is going to be, we're going to drop it down to atmospheric pressure, so the CO2 is going to be super saturated, and it'll stay in solution that way for a period of time, as long as you don't hit it with a reason to come out of solution. That'd be like a sharp 90, or a throttling valve at the end, like
agitation, in other words,
Yeah, those little fillers you use for filling of a bottling bucket, those will throttle it and just immediately cause it to foam up.
Well,
so,
even any turns where you've got a liquid traveling through a bend, the shorter path on the inner part of the bend is going to have a different pressure than the outer part on the longer part of the bend. You can pull gas out in something like that, I would imagine,
Yeah, absolutely. Sharp 90s versus long sweep 90s, are make a big difference. And fundamental to the design of the beer gun was one, we used a long length of 3/16 ID hose so that we gradually dropped the pressure from. In this case, we recommend you start about half the normal dispensing pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that 5 to 7 psi range, and it drops it from there down to atmospheric pressure. Very gradually over a 10-foot length, and we don't have any 90-degree bends. There's a 1/4-inch ID tube that we call the beer tube.
Mm-hmm.
Complicated name there, and it's a 3/16 inside diameter. So as the beer goes all the way through, all the way to the bottom of the bottle, it doesn't experience any sharp 90-degree turns.
So should people, when
that helps.
When people are laying out their tubing from the keg to the bottle on the beer gun, should they try and leave those in straighter paths? They shouldn't they shouldn't coil it up on the counter. They should leave it laid out flat and straight as much as possible. Does that
you just really just don't want to kink the hose?
Uh-huh.
If you've got a 6-inch diameter coil or something like that, that's such a long sweep, it really is not going to cause the the CO2 to come out of solution.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing, then right at the very base of the bottle, and that was the other thing, is to make sure we fill in right from the very bottom of the bottle, because as soon as you get that the end of that tube submersed in beer, that really keeps the foaming down too.
Mm-hmm.
So we just have a very quick acting valve at the bottom. It's just a little rubber ball and a flared end on the tube, and that you lift that up when you pull the trigger of the beer gun,
mm-hmm.
and it just quickly opens it, just like a tap. You open it quickly and close it quickly,
mm-hmm.
and that again keeps you from throttling
mm-hmm.
the beer. And the other item then is getting the CO2 into the bottle to purge the air out, and we've got another tube, the CO2 tube, that we just have a little button valve that you can push button valve, and that allows you to purge the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
So you do connect this up to your regulator, so you need a spare CO2 port on your regulator, and that's used to purge the bottle. And so you just push one button to purge it, and then you pull the trigger, and it starts filling it up with beer, and you just fill it until just a smidge of beer runs out the top. And when you withdraw the stem, this is the other thing I really like about the beer gun, is the volume of that stem gives you the perfect bottle fill.
Mm-hmm.
And then all you do is in that little headspace that's left, because now that you've pulled the stem out, you've gone just a smidge of oxygen back in. You just give that open space just a little shot of CO2 with the tip of the beer gun, and cap immediately.
Cool. Well,
so right there you've eliminated the nucleation sites for the beer to foam.
Mm-hmm.
You've gradually reduced the pressure, so it does. You can keep the beer super saturated at that pressure, and you've given the ability to purge the CO2 out,
right,
or the air out with CO2.
Well, and that's one thing I found, you talk about the quick action of opening and closing the valve. I found the same thing on all the counter pressure fillers I've tried over the years. If it didn't have a valve that I could open as quickly as possible, I had troubles with it, opening and closing, if you can't open and close it quickly. And that's why I had problems with the ones where it's got a three-way valve at the top, because I couldn't get it open quick enough and closed quick enough to satisfy my needs, especially on the highly
end up spraying the beer.
Yeah, well, it ends up if you open it slowly, it ends up just forcing it through a little narrow gap, and you end up with a lot of CO2 coming out, and you end up with an initial amount of foam. And once it starts foaming, then you've kind of lost the battle on that bottle. It's better just to stop. Pour that beer into a glass. You send that bottle back to be sanitized and rinsed again, and then try it again with another one. So you got to open and close those really quickly, and that's one of the critical things when you're filling a beer. So if you have a valve you can open and close quickly, that's much better. So I think that's one of the reasons I like the beer gun is because of that aspect.
And the other thing that I really wanted out of the design of that product is something that was very easy to sanitize. And, because a lot of those other fillers that I use, I just never felt comfortable that I was getting them clean.
Mm-hmm.
And, this has just got a couple of tubes that are the only thing that touches the beer, and we even include a cleaning brush to run up inside it. And it's really easy to clean. And that was one of the other things, too, is I never wanted to take the time to set all that stuff up to fill just, a few bottles for, send it to some, buddies or take it to a party or that kind of thing, because it just took a while. So I wanted something that was just simple to put together and connect up. It's not it's just simply just connecting it up to this, to the beer out and, a quick connection onto the CO2 and you're ready to go.
Yeah, I know what you're saying there. It was always such a big project for me that I would get the wife, we'd set the whole thing up, and I would do 12 to 14 cases at a time. I would do, 6 to 7 beers at a time, because just setting it up, make sure everything's sanitized. And the problem with the filler that I last used was that the valves had many little intricate parts in them, so I have to completely disassemble them to get to really clean it out. And you should clean your filler every time you've used it. You should clean it thoroughly. Make sure there's no organic matter left in the filler, and then you want to sanitize it thoroughly. When you set it up to counter pressure fill or to fill bottles, whatever method you're using, you want to run sanitizer through it first. And if you run some sanitizer through it, let it sit for a little bit, then run a little bit of beer through it, and then you're good to go. Very important. And one other trick I used to do was I would first do all my clean beers, and then the last beers I would do would be all my sours, all my lambics and Flanders and things like that. I would do those last. I just didn't want any chance of carrying over some of those bugs into the cleaner beers that I had. I didn't care, if I got a little English ale yeast in a beer that used Cal Ale. That didn't matter as much to me. But the bugs, that was a big deal.
I bet you could set up just a keg with some sanitizer in it,
mm-hmm.
and just switch, the liquid Bollock. Just switch it out to the sanitizer in between batches, and just let it blast out sanitizer through
mm-hmm.
it, for a minute, and then switch it back over to a different beer.
All right, that's a great idea.
Slick.
Yeah, and you can also use that to help clean up your your kegging system. If your faucet dispense as well.
Yep.
Good way of doing that. Good idea. Palmer, you got anything to add to the discussion of counter pressure filling?
No, I don't think so. I think covered everything quite well. I've always enjoyed using the beer gun after my own, instead of my own attempts at counter pressure filling. It takes the counter pressure out of it. You don't have to worry about trying to pressurize the bottle, and there goes the beer spray. So,
see, one thing about you, Palmer, that I really love is you always want to build your own stuff, and I know you're capable of it. You're a brilliant mind. Great engineer, but I think it's finances and time that pretty much end up stopping you in the long run. And then you go, well, yeah, somebody's got a good product. I'll just get one of these. But you love the challenge.
I do. I'm kind of like John that way. I'm looking for an innovative solution, one that really addresses the issue,
mm-hmm.
and trying to find an elegant solution to it. And that's it's great to see products like this that really solve the issue.
There you go.
Takes the work out of it.
That elegant solutions to your brewing problems. That should be the Blickman tagline.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of this just comes back, from my engineering experience at Caterpillar. The most simple product is going to be the lowest cost and the most reliable.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always look at my designs, and it usually takes me, like the beer gun. The first couple designs I came up with for that were significantly more complicated, and this is. It's just too many parts, and I really just simplified it, and that's kind of what I try to do with all the products I've got, and don't put a part in there unless it's really serving a purposeful function,
mm-hmm.
and that keeps your costs down, keeps the product a lot more reliable and just easier to use.
Right. Yeah, I think it's the best product out there on the market for filling pressurized beer. Now, how does all this compare to what the commercial brewery's doing? Now, I know that they're very, very concerned about oxygen pickup and contamination and a lot of other things. You guys know how this compares to the tricks that the large
how commercial bottle filler works?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't. I believe they have. Do they have a tube that goes down the bottom of the bottle, or is it?
I think I've seen some where there's a stem that drops into there, and I'm almost positive that they're actually a counter pressure filled.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it's actually filled, then they have a jet. I don't know. I think it just uses reverse osmosis water.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little jet that sprays a real high pressure jet just to kick up some foam, and then they immediately cap it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's how it works.
Right.
They pressurize the bottle to fill it, and then take that off, withdraw that stem,
mm-hmm.
and squirt the water into cap on foam. Yeah, I think that's how it works.
Well, and and they have. I think they have other things that they squirt in there to get it going, gases, and they'll flush them with various things. And I think one of the big failings in a lot of these commercial setups is that the bottles aren't cleaned and sanitized as well as you might like. For me, I make sure that there's nothing in those bottles, and they get filled with sanitizer, and they get to drip dry and things like that. And I've seen commercial breweries where they just have a case of bottles from the manufacturer, and that goes right in and gets filled with beer. And if you've ever looked through enough bottles, and believe me, I've looked through thousands. There's spiders, there's dust, there's gnats, there's all sorts of crud in there. There's other pieces of glass. There's all sorts of strange things that you find in those bottles. So you want to clean those bottles out thoroughly. If you're going to reuse bottles, you have to make sure they are spotless.
Get the cigarette butts out.
Yeah, any crud in there, one, is going to make it harder to fill the bottle because it's going to tend to provide a nucleation site that the CO2 can come out of. But also, it's contaminants that you're going to end up messing with. And again, if it's something for the short term, I guess it's not a big deal. You can drink with your teeth closed and strain out the cigarette butts, chewing gum, and all that. But if you want to send off to competition, you really want to make sure you're using clean bottles. Okay. Did we cover everything that we think we need to cover? Anything we missed?
I think so. Probably just kind of recap. If you're using a standard counter pressure bottle filler, the tips are chill the beer, get it quite cold.
Yeah.
That will help the CO2 stay in solution.
Right. Use a high overpressure. Get the keg up above the bottle and slowly siphon the beer into the bottle instead of
make sure
pushing
that you do pull the CO2 pressure off it because you don't want to overcarbonate it over.
Once you're done,
too much.
Once you're done, bleed it back off. But you want to. If you try pushing the beer, people put the keg on the floor and then push the beer up out of the keg into the bottle. That's the wrong way to do it. Reverse that. Get the keg up high and then slowly siphon it into the bottle, and you'll have better luck with those standard counter pressure fillers, I think. That's the trick that worked for me over the years. Until I learned that trick, I could not counter pressure fill a bottle to save my life.
On the beer gun, we kind of recommend the other way because it's a different process.
Mm-hmm.
That allows you to drop a half a psi, a couple, psi or so of pressure just from the elevation. So, that works. And it's kind of, when I feel like Jim Mill was saying, you kind of get a procedure that works for you and then just stick with that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're having trouble, then try, add on things like cooling your bottles, add on, the location of the keg and cooling the keg and those things as you see you need to, based on the success you're having with filling the bottles.
Yeah, I never had to cool my bottles with the with that, with all these other tricks, and so that worked well. Let's do this. Let's take a short break, and after the break, we'll answer some questions from listeners. Back after this.
Right. Brew smart. Brew strong. This is Brew Strong.
The cutting-edge equipment from Blickman Engineering is designed by brewers to make your brew day shorter, more enjoyable, and to give you a sense of pride in your equipment. At Blickman, they know what makes brewing a pain and build gear that makes it fun. Like the intuitive beer gun, a completely different approach to filling bottles. The Therminator Wort Chiller, a new take on a plate chiller that's sized for flow, performance, and the high groundwater temps homebrewers face every day. The Brewmometer, a brilliant weldless thermometer design with brewing parameters right on the dial. The Autosparge, ultimate simplicity for preventing an overflow or running your mash tun dry. And much more, like the modular top-tier brewing stand, conical fermenters, and their Boilermaker brew pots. With more cutting-edge equipment coming soon, keep up with the latest from Blickman at blickmanengineering.com and stay on the cutting edge.
Nico, listen, our lawyers said that we had to do this for 1 hour, and after this, we don't have to talk to each other for 3 more months to the next meeting.
Kids. Come on, let's get out of here.
I'm supposed to have more lines. I'm the professional. Hey, it's Sully.
And I'm Nico.
And we opened the 21st Amendment 10 years ago at 563 2nd Street in San Francisco, just 2 blocks from Giants Park, to make great beer and have a great time doing it.
That's right, because to us, the 21st Amendment is more than just the right to make beer. It's the right to experiment, to be innovative, and just do things differently. And so now, we're putting our craft beer in cans.
That's right, cans. You can find our world-famous Hell or High Watermelon Wheat Beer at Brew for Your Die IPA in the Northeast, Northwest, parts of the Midwest, and Alaska, in cans and on draft. So next time you're at your local neighborhood pub or good beer store, be sure to ask for 21st Amendment in cans.
Because everyone likes it in a can.
Tasty crack cans.
Tasty crack cans.
Williams Brewing is your online resource for prompt delivery of quality home brewing supplies. Since 1979, Williams Brewing has offered the finest equipment and freshest ingredients and the best customer service in the business. Cut hours off your brewing sessions by using one of our 11 varieties of famous Williams malt extract. Our Williams Belgian Pale Extract is mashed with pure Belgian 2-row malt and a small percentage of Belgian wheat malt for an authentic Belgian character you just can't get from other extracts. Or check out our unique fermenters, 2.5-gallon kegs, paintball tank-based draft beer equipment, bottling aids, and much more. We even have our own line of precision hydrometers. Go to williamsbrewing.com to browse our vast selection. That's williamsbrewing.com. Orders placed by 3:30 p.m. Pacific Time ship the same day. Brewing is easy. The Williams way.
Hey, what are you doing, man?
Writing a review of WLP 400.
What? You're reviewing yeast?
Yeah. White Labs has home brewer reviews of all their strains. Are you new to these interwebs? Check it out.
That's awesome.
White Labs, your source for great yeast, invites all brewers to visit whitelabs.com to read and write your own reviews of all their yeast strains. Get real-world tips and tricks from other brewers who have made the most of their vials and post your own experiences. It's another way White Labs brings you closer to the best yeast on the planet.
And send. There you go.
You misspelled flocculate, dude.
What?
White Labs. It's all in the vial.
This is www.thebrewingnetwork.com.
Sit down next to it, grab yourself a paper towel, and watch those yeast have sex.
You're listening to the Brewing Network.
Like the Lance Armstrong of the beer world. Except for that nut thing.
This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. We're talking counter pressure filling, and we've got guests with us, Mr. John Blickman of Blickman Engineering, also our fine sponsor. Questions from the chat room, Justin?
Yeah, one question that has been coming through is about cleaning the gun, and you had talked a bit about that, John. But specifically, he was wondering if he should use PBW or beer line cleaner or OxyClean. Like, what is the best solution?
Any of those cleaning agents are just fine. I mean, you can just use, you can. I personally just use PBW because that's what I have around for cleaning out bottles and everything else.
Okay.
But any of the beer line cleaners are fine. You generally, since you're not using the product for days and days, you don't get a lot of protein loads that build up on the inside of the tubes. And we've got a brush that we include with it, so you can clean out the beer tube, the inside of the beer tube, and the CO2 tube. So it's pretty darn easy to keep clean, and any stainless safe cleaner will work just fine.
Okay. And so some folks have counter pressure fillers, and they're curious about the beer line length and diameter and how that affects the bottling of a beer. Can you talk a little bit about the length and diameters of beer lines?
On the beer gun, it's pretty vital. That's part of the way we drop that pressure gradually. And on a counter pressure, it's less sensitive to that, mostly because you're bringing the bottle up to the pressure of the keg, and then you bleed off pressure, and then it starts to flow. So you're really limiting the flow by how you're letting the CO2 pressure vent off that pressurized bottle to let the beer flow. And on the beer gun, you just pull that trigger open. So we've got it sized so that if you have that length of hose combined with the ID of the beer tube, that it just works out great.
Okay.
So it's a vital part for the beer gun, but it's less sensitive to that for a counter pressure filler.
Now, if you're using the beer gun and you've got, should you have different tubing lengths if you're filling, let's say, some British mild versus a Belgian strong? And you got, double the carbonation one versus the other. Would you need different tubing lengths? Is there something, special you want to do for that?
With the highly carbonated beer, with your standard, 2.5 volume and below beers, the 10-foot line works fine. Mm-hmm. And I've never really tried it with a highly carbonated beer like a Belgian or something. And intuitively, it tells me if you were to increase the length of that, you can, you've just got less of a instant pressure change as you go, or you don't have to drop your keg pressure as low. Mm-hmm. So, say you've carbonated that thing at 20 psi, you can drop it down to maybe 15 and double the length of your hose, and you'll drop that. I'm trying to remember what I think it's about a psi a foot or something like that, isn't it, John? What's the pressure drop?
For the 3/16, it's 3 psi per foot. So
3 psi per foot, yeah.
Yeah, the 10 foot length is going to pretty much allow any most high pressure or highly carbonated beers coming from the keg to reach equilibrium and develop a slow velocity as they fill. The faster you fill the bottle, the more it's going to foam. So that's part of what the long line pressure does. Long line does on the beer gun is that resistance reduces the flow velocity and quiets the beer and keeps the CO2 in suspension.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
that's
also
where we've got that what we call the quiescent flow.
Right.
So the flow is laminar through the tube, that small ID tube, and then it's just the whole idea is just to gently get that beer into the bottle.
And also, if you lower the temperature significantly, that probably helps somewhat on those very gassy Belgians and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, chilling your bottle.
And really, that's kind of if you're really struggling with a certain beer style, that's just an extra piece of help you can add on to the process if you think you need it. Most of the times, it works just fine out of the box.
Mm-hmm. Well, and one other thing that I find is, maybe the first beer that you fill, the filler is warm. Once you run a beer through it, it tends to be nice and cool, and then that also seems to help, especially with the counter pressure filling. If you get the filler chilled down, that seems to help somewhat as well.
Yeah, and that's the beer you're going to want to drink anyway.
Right, you pour some for yourself.
filling.
Yeah, exactly. Any mistakes, go into a pint glass, and you just enjoy those when you're done. All right, next question.
Well, that was about it, actually. The beer gun's pretty self-explanatory. I did have some comments for you, John.
Okay.
Some folks wanted me to thank you for designing the auto sparge. Says that it works great and improved my numbers because of the way it adds the wort back to my ton. My burners don't fire nearly as much. And he wanted to thank Jamil for mentioning the auto sparge because that's how he found out about it.
Cool.
And I could add to that too, John. So producer Shat's been using your auto sparge on our system back here, and he's in love with it.
Good.
It really does.
Right.
Although he's kind of a doofus, and he lost that little screw that holds the arm right into his mash. He hadn't figured out yet that you can just raise the sparge arm, so you can mount the whole thing to your mash tun before you dough in, and the sparge arm just raises up and out of the way. Well, he sort of thought he had to detach it and then then screw it in with this tiny little screw when he and so here he was mashing, and he's telling himself, "Oh, I know I'm going to screw this up." And sure enough, he drops the screw in. He laid out the entire mash on the back patio afterward, looking for that screw. And I come out there and I go, I can probably just call John and see if he's got another screw, man. But aside from that mishap, he really does like that sparge arm too.
Good. But I'm about the laziest brewer on the planet. So I'm always thinking of ways. How can I do this so that I can sit in the living room and drink a beer while I'm brewing? And that's one of the things. Having run over a mash tun or having gone, crap, I just ran my mash tun dry. It just led me to do. I actually had that thing in my brewery for a while and thought, why don't I come out with this? This thing just works great.
Nice.
And that's how I came up with that. Same thing with the beer gun. Just same frustrations every other brewer has with these things. I just try to think up a better way of doing these and coming out with them, and it's fun to do.
All right, John, you're going to be at the NHC, and you're doing a presentation, right?
Yes, sure am.
You're planning, and this is about all those tips and tricks for the brewery.
Yeah, it's an idea that I'd had when I was leaving the 2009 show on just the plethora of knowledge and information that all the brewers at that conference have, and how can I help distribute that to all the other attendees at the shows? To kind of capture all the knowledge that's there and try to make everybody's brew day easier, particularly those that are just starting to do some all-grain breweries or setting up their breweries. So the whole crux of the presentation is just to talk about, how do you plan your brew day so you don't have these, oh crap, I forgot to do that disaster, or oh, I forgot all about making my yeast starter, those kind of things. How do you plan your brew day, and organizational tips? How do we store grain? Cleaning is 90% of brewing. What are some easy tips for cleaning up? And how do you? I brewed in my garage for years after I got booted out of the kitchen for too many boilovers. And it's how do you organize in your brewery so you can quickly set up and quickly tear down? Because you got to park the cars and tools and everything else in there. Those are the kind of things that I'll be talking about. And I've actually set up an email account. It's NHC2010 at BlickmanEngineering.com, and I'm just actively requesting people to send in their cool ideas. Just simple little things. I had one guy send in a picture of how he hangs his hoses from the rafters in his garage to dry them. Just little things like that. Something you think, oh, certainly everybody's thought of this. Could very well not be the case. And let's share that knowledge with the rest of the brewers there. And I'm just kind of the MC, kind of putting it together. So
cool.
Again, it's NHC2010 at BlickmanEngineering.com. Send them on in. Make sure to send pictures and a description of your idea.
Cool. So all you guys listening, make sure you send those ideas on so John can further disseminate the good information to the rest of the populace out there.
I wish I had thought of that, John, having the listeners write my presentation for me, too.
Oh, you're on to my evil plan. See, I told you I'm a lazy brewer.
Yeah, man. I like it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your expertise. And look forward to seeing you out there in June. It's going to be a
and all your listeners, if you're out there, be sure to stop by our booth.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, folks. Another great series of shows.
Hey, and one last thing. I just got my copy of BYO Magazine, and Mr. Palmer there has an oatmeal article in it this month.
Yeah.
And I read through about half of it when you guys were doing a segment. And it's
you had to go to the bathroom?
Yeah, I had to go to the bathroom, so I took the article with me. And it's a nice article in the newest edition of BYO Magazine by our very own John Palmer. Good job, John.
All right.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, that's the packaging for you. And if you get a chance, make sure you visit our great sponsor, BlickmanEngineering.com. Also check out BYO Magazine, like Justin said, BYO. Palmer's got an article in there. I do style profile articles as well. And you can get that magazine by going to thebrewingnetwork.com. There's a BYO logo on there on the main page. You just click on that, sign up, and half of what you sign up for goes to the Brewing Network. So that's very cool. And you can also get some goodies out of the store. You get some shirts, get some books, all that goes to the bottom line of the Brewing Network and helps provide these shows for you, so you don't have to pay for them otherwise. And if you get a chance, come on out to the NHC out in June, Minneapolis. We'll all be there. We're going to have a big party. You can get tickets, VIP tickets, right now for the BN5 anniversary party. And there's only a few of those left, so jump on them right away. If you're listening live, hang on. We're going to have another show coming up, live Q&A. Bring your questions, and you can ask them for Palmer and I. We'll do our best to answer, like we usually do. Anything else to add, Monsieur Palmer?
No. Brew strong, cretins.
Right, yeah. So, snap yourself off a nice fresh piece.